Yes.
Okay, all right, cool. Stand by. Turn him off right now. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm all set.
Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on 100.5.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray. I am your host, Kareem Bowen. I'm thanking you guys for tuning in to another edition. We have had an amazing time together. This is a new year. I'm expecting new things, great things happening. On last week, we had an amazing conversation. If you did not catch last week's show, we're going to make sure that we have an opportunity to put it up somewhere so that you can hear it. Amazing conversation I had with two of our white pastors in the Saginaw County community, and we discuss race in America. I know the name of the show is United Shades of Gray, and we discuss conversations on race in America. But on today, we're going to change slightly. We're going to talk with a community phenomenon. He is a local celebrity. He has traveled across the world and known across the nation. And we have in the studio with me my brother, my friend, Brian Pruitt. Brian, why don't you say hello to our USG audience out there?
Hello, everyone, and hello, Kareem. It is an honor to be with you all, and so proud of what you're doing, man. I want you to know that you are. When I grow up, I want to be like you.
You have your hands full being Brian Pruitt. For those of you who do not know Brian, but I'm sure he is no stranger to most of you that are listening and that will hear this broadcast. But he is the CEO of Power of Dad. It is an amazing mentorship program that takes young men literally from boys to men.
Yes.
And he's been doing this. Brian, how long have you been doing this for?
14 years now, and we've had literally just over 1,000 young men come through our doors over 14 years. So we've been blessed.
So he has been doing some amazing thing, impacting the lives of young people all over the place. So we're going to get a conversation because Brian is here today. I asked him to come in. He has a phenomenal new book that's going to be released pretty soon, and we'll talk about that release date. We'll also give you the information so that you can pre-order. I've read a number of his previous books, but this one was very interesting to me because I don't know if he meant it to be a leadership book or a book for those who are just dealing with wounds. But anyways, the name of the book is Wounded Lions. Your loudest roar comes from your deepest wound.
Yes.
It's a phenomenal book. And I guess because of my work with leadership training and things of that nature, I took it from the aspect of leaders who are wounded lions. Lions often roar. Lions are the king of the jungle. They are the top of the food chain. And so this is an amazing book. We're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, Brian, I often do a segment that is called Hot Off the Press.
Yeah.
And so since you're with me today, I thought I would bring you in. One of the things that we've talked about for a long period of time, both on Straight Talk and then also here on United Shades of Gray, is the importance of leadership and what I would consider as a failure of leadership is in this current administration. Last week, and this is so funny, Rob, you'll know this. Last week we were on the air and I was with two white pastors talking about how could we bring conciliation to the faith-based community, and was there, systemic racism, areas of systemic racism. And shortly after I was on the air here, there was an insurrection. Donald Trump's insurrection took place.
Wow.
And that was interesting. Rob, what has been your experience? What have you been thinking about since the last time we were together on this show a week ago?
My country's coming apart. The democracy, the country that I served faithfully, honestly, 20 years. I've seen democracy come. I've never dreamed something like this would happen, and at least not in my lifetime. You know, the American experiment is in jeopardy. Let's put it that way. The American experiment is in jeopardy. In spite of America's sins with slavery and what have you, the American experiment, which is democracy, which we're supposed to set an example for every other country, is in jeopardy. And right. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah. And so, Brian, it was so crazy. I mean, we literally left here shortly after 1. I missed the beginning of the insurrection because I had a funeral to go to.
Yeah.
But I get home and I'm getting calls and I'm like, what is going on? And I thought the world was ending, and it literally was.
Wow.
But to get home and to see the images of these insurrectionists, these anarchists is what we would call them.
Yeah.
You know, hanging from the sides of building, climbing the Capitol building.
They're not patriotic. I don't care what they were. Anytime, see, when you attack the Capitol building, you're attacking the people's building there. These are representatives that we elected to represent the people of the United States, regardless of what your political position is, whatnot.
Yeah.
They all gather in one building to debate and do what needs to be done per our Constitution. That's the whole reason why that building exists, to represent that.
It is the people's building.
It is the people's building. So when it's not so much about Nancy Pelosi or Michael Pence, anything like that. It's the people's building. The representatives that we send there,
that's right,
both the Senate and the Congress itself, will put into jeopardy there. So that's just saying. And anytime a executive branch, one branch of government out of 3 branches of government, which is designed for checks and balances, dares to attack another, or at least incite or influence the attack of another, that threatens our democracy. That threatens the whole thread of how our checks and balances is supposed to work.
And Rob ain't playing it. Rob is former military. I don't know if you picked that up or not, Brian.
Yeah, I know he is. He is. And so he's got something to say. And Kareem, I don't think people understand this. It was some of those same people who were showing up at the Black Lives Matter movements, doing some of the same things. And people need to know that those people, they've been in the picture the whole summer. They've been the whole year. They've been around doing things and kind of hiding behind the shadows. And what we saw them do the other day was they just came out from behind the shadows.
Man,
that shakes me up too, and it also changed me both as an American, but particularly as a veteran, to know that some of my fellow veterans were involved in that whole thing. I want everyone to know that the American military, from the 20 years I've served in, I've served with every person who represented every branch of our military during my 20 years. I had a chance to work with Marines, Air Force men, Army men, Coast Guardsmen, you name it. I served with those individuals there, and they're loyal and dedicated to their job.
Right.
You only have a few bad apples, like in any bunch of apples you have. You're going to find a few rotten apples there who just can't do what they're supposed to do to follow through.
And so we now are here, and we are now, and this is interesting because I think your book is very appropriate for the conversation today, Wounded Lions.
Yeah.
We're now dealing with a president and administration that, and a nation, so to speak, that has been wounded by what I would consider one of the ugliest scars in American history. There has never been an atrocity such as we have all been able to witness. And the interesting thing about it, Brian, is that we have not seen, I don't think, the level of outrage from the entire body. We've seen some individuals coming in saying, hey, this is inappropriate. We're not going to go for this.
Yeah.
But as a body, I'm disappointed in the fact that everyone has not stood up and denounced what we have seen. So this is what's going on. All right. So currently today, as we were coming on the air, they were still debating. They had begun their 2-hour debate on really impeaching Donald Trump. He will be the first president in our history to have been impeached twice. And so will he be removed? They're saying they'll have as many as 17 to 20 individuals from the Republican Party that will vote to remove him from office. Yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. It was interesting to see Mitch McConnell, come out the way that he did. And he initially just basically told his Republican colleagues, I want you to vote your conscience.
That's right.
We've never seen him do that before. So I'm hoping that at some point between now and the ending or the conclusion of those arguments, that those Republicans will find their spines.
That's the word.
It's important that we do that. Brian, when you look at this, these guys,
it's not so much find the sponsors, but follow the oath of their office. Also, the oath of office.
well, but I think it requires them, Rob. I think in them finding their spines, they have to do what their oath of office is saying, and it takes courage.
Right.
Yeah, it's both.
I think the coward thing is to just walk away. It would be easier to say just let them disappear.
Yeah,
but it takes courage under fire.
uh-huh.
For them to stand up in this moment and to do what they've been elected to do.
That's right.
Because you've seen what's happened for everyone who has gone against. They were asking for the vice president to be hung.
That's right. That's right.
They were looking for Nancy Pelosi with zip ties to do what?
Yeah.
So the idea was to capture and to kill. So it is going to take some courageous men and women on the Republican side.
Yeah.
To do what you're saying is their job. But how many of us are able to execute our jobs in the face of persecution? That's a
right.
serious challenge. Now, one of the things that I'll tell you this, and I've said this before, Brian, we're talking about leadership, and you do a lot of leadership training yourself.
Yes.
And one of the things that we often say is that the true test of leadership comes in the face of conflicts or in the moments of adversity.
And the
when you begin
times.
to see what we're dealing with here, what would you say to those individuals that are saying, hey, I'm having a tough time doing my job, I'm afraid?
Yeah.
What does the leader do in this moment?
A leader does their job anyway. This is what you signed up for. Anybody can lead where there is no resistance. Anybody can lead where there is no tension. Anybody can lead where there is no storm. That's easy to do. But we now have a storm. We now have resistance, and there's tension, and we need the leaders of our country to rise now, to have a voice. The toughest thing, Kareem, is if you're in the midst of a storm and your leader's voice goes silent. The people go into panic because at the least what they expect to hear is if they can't see you, they definitely want to hear your voice to say left, right, forward, backwards, okay? And right now the people need to hear from their leaders. Many of the people that we've been listening to on television are now backtracking on some of their decisions. Some of them would backtrack quicker if they didn't know if they could assure they weren't going to lose a whole lot. But some of them are going to lose a lot of stuff. Some of them are going to lose their careers. And so they're trying not to backtrack. That's what's happening.
So this is the thing. So the thing that drives me crazy is when has America or a democracy become a place that it is more important for me to hold on to my position and my power. And I'm not talking about number 45. I'm talking about those representatives and those senators that were sent there to do a job. They're more concerned about holding on to power than they are speaking truth to power and really representing the will of we the people.
Well, that's Kareem, that right there. What you just said is it. When you hear people say, man, where did we go wrong? You just gave the answer. We start going wrong when power started meaning more than representing the voice of the people. Because then it became about what can I get out of it? How can this position enhance my life? As much as more so than how do we help people from these places of power? And so you are answering a very viable question that you hear throughout the media and in the streets every day. How did we get here? We got here because power became more important than people. And what we've been seeing over the last year is that people are reminding society and government, no, we are what matters. Our voices matter. And we are looking for people to represent us that will remind us that we have value and to remind our leaders that silence is unacceptable in moments like this.
Right. Okay. You spend a great deal of your time. I was sharing very at the top of this conversation that you do a lot with Young Boys Power of Dad. I want you to, first of all, the first thing that I'd like you to do for our listeners is to express to them what POD, Power of Dad, is. And then I'm going to ask you a question after you express that, because I'm interested in what do we say to young men and young women as a mentor, as a father, as a dad,
Yeah.
in terms of what we're seeing today. So first of all, go ahead and express to them, share with them what POD is and what you've been able to accomplish over the years.
So Power of Dad is a nonprofit organization. We work with fatherless boys, ages 11 through 18. Matter of fact, a couple of years ago, we started working with 5-year-olds on up. So we have a kids program as well. What we do is we teach 22 life skills that a young man's father was not there to teach them. Everything from anger management to conflict resolution to dating to how to tie a tie. Okay. And it has been a very successful program. Like I stated, we've reached just over 1,000 young men. We have a program in Saginaw, but we also have 3 programs in Isabella County that includes the city of Mount Pleasant. And we were in the process of launching a program in Detroit before COVID hit. So we'll get back to that when things change here. So we are a growing program. Great things are happening. The way we have dealt with this, we have spoken to dealt with this and spoke to our young men very similar to the way I speak to my own kids. My phone rings. Of course, we haven't been able to meet with our young men the way we were in the past because of the way COVID and all those things like that. But the conversations we have been able to have and the interaction we have been able to have, I talk to the boys like I talk to my kids, and they got a lot of questions. Some of them are fearful of their life in regards to being African-American young men. Not all the young men who come through our program are African-American, but the ones who are, they have questions in regards to that. And we have to give them peace. We have to give them information, and we have to give them a navigation process on here's what to do when you are in these type of situations. We also have to speak to the heart of these young men on how to use their passion for a certain purpose to further those purposes so that they can make life not only better for themselves, but better for those who will come after them. Okay. I think we've been successful at doing that. This is a time where there's a generation coming underneath us who has a lot of questions. And one of the big questions is simply, man, how do you guys keep telling us to respect one another when we're watching you disrespect one another?
So Brian, when we begin to look at this, and that is an amazing point to talk about. During the course of this past 13 months, this past year, 10 months in particular, when we look at the issues of the George Floyd social unrest, when we look at what many of your young men that are African American from inner city communities are dealing with in terms of the impact of COVID, how are you helping these young men? When you look at the suspension of basketball, no football, practice, all of these things, we're now getting back to, we're having some of those things begin to play out again. But how has that impacted the minds of these young men? And what do you say to them to help them to cope with the issues of COVID?
Yeah. So for us, because so much has been taken away from them, what we're challenging we live in a world right now where there's so much we can't control. What I'm challenging our young men to do is to focus on the things that they can control. So you may not be able to be a hero out in public, so to speak, at this point in time, or on a basketball court or on a football field. But one of the challenges I was putting out, and we've been putting out to our young men, is we want you to be a hero in your home. Your mother needs your help right now. Your little brother, little sister needs your help right now. And that help can come in the form of doing chores. That help can come in the form of going to your mother, your grandmother, whoever that may be, and say, hey, listen, I know we're going through a tough time right now. Is there anything I can do to make this a better situation for us? So we're challenging them to not focus on the things they can't control, because that'll drive you crazy in itself, but to focus on the things that they can control. And the things they can control are the things that were happening in their house. So grab your family, pull them around you. I need you, even though you're a young man, I need you to lead your family through a pandemic. And I need you to do that by using your leadership skills, the ones that we've taught you. And so not only myself, but our mentors. We have a great group of mentors throughout Power Dad who has helped us for years and helped us to become a very successful program. But that's the message we're giving to our young men. You be the leader in your home. You can't be a superstar on the court right now. You can't be a superstar on the football field right now. I need you to be a superstar in your home and just do what needs to be done to make life a little bit easier for grandma, mom, or whoever else is in your home.
Wow, I want to thank you for that. And for those of you listening, this is a live social media event. This will play in its entirety on Sunday at 7 p.m. Right here in WSGW on 790 AM and 100.5 FM. I did it, Rob. My producer always said, like, come on, man, we got to get it right. So I wanted you all to know that. But if you're interested in calling in, I want you to call in at 989-776-6518. That is 989-776-6518. We are with the amazing, the terrific Brian Pruitt. Okay, Brian, we're going to transition. It's going to be interesting because I can't wait to find out what happens with this current situation with them voting on impeachment. But I want to begin the transition. I am holding up here, when I've got favor, some people have favor. I'm an individual who has favor, and hot off the press, we have Wounded Lions. I want to talk to you about this book. I want to start by asking you why this topic, why this subject, Wounded Lions.
Yeah, it was interesting, Kareem. During this whole pandemic time, I had started writing this book before the pandemic hit. And I want to say it was a God idea. I had no idea what was coming. But as I was writing the book and then seeing what was happening, what I saw was a nation of wounded lions.
And I see the influence here with some of the individuals that you used in here. Rosa Parks and Lincoln.
Yes.
So go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and how often our society was moved by wounded lions, and they moved us into new eras, and they moved us into greatness. And so I almost want to say it was prophetic in regards to, I had no idea when I started writing this book, but the book was launched mainly, and the idea and the thought came into my heart because in my travels, I met so many people who have been through so many things. I find people the most fascinating and resilient things on planet Earth. And what I discovered about people is that people are resilient, and that when life hits them and when they get wounded by life, you begin to meet people who turn those wounds into wins. And those are amazing people. And you begin to just find out, man, that most people, the loudest roar they have ever made in their life, it typically comes from the deepest wound that they probably received in their life. And so I just wanted to encourage people, but then all of a sudden, as the book was coming to an end towards this summer, this whole thing began to unfold. And I was saying to my wife, I said, it's just wounded lions, and they're roaring now.
Wow. And so we see a great deal of this taking place. Brian, if you could really quickly, before we take our first commercial break, I want you to give me your definition of what a wounded lion is.
Yes. A wounded lion is anybody who has gone through a test or trial, felt like your dreams have died, and been through the fire, but somehow you made a decision that this thing was going to make you better. It wasn't going to kill you.
So whatever doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. I say that oftentimes, many times in life, Brian, and I know that you are a great testament to this, especially if we begin to talk about your particular story. Yeah. Absolutely. Walker, walk the walk. Walker says from pain to greatness, that when we look at our lives, oftentimes we think that adversity has come into our lives to destroy us. Mm-hmm. But the reality of the situation is that adversity does not come in to destroy us, but those are God's opportunity to define us.
That's right.
What we do with those lemons, if we make lemonade or we suck on them and become sourpusses,
that's right.
All determined upon what we see in terms of our future, what we're doing, and where we're going. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with more of Brian Pruitt on United Shades of Gray. All right, so Brian, we're here
can't hear you right now.
Oh, he can't hear me. Oh, you can't hear me right now.
Put your break part everybody down so I can have that moment to talk.
All right.
Hold on for a minute. And I can talk to him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So, Brian, we'll continue. And what I want to talk to, and those that are out there, experience is the best teacher, loving it, bro. All right. What I want to talk about is I want to get into this book. And we're going to continue this conversation because there's two shows. There's the one that will air on the radio, and then there's the one that's live right now on social media. You make the statement, and I'm going to bring this up once we get back on air so that you can share with us. A wounded lion by no means loses its majesty.
That's right. Yeah. You want to talk about that?
You ready to get started again, Rob?
You shouldn't be hearing that. You're not hearing anything, right?
I'm not hearing anything now, but I was before.
Yeah, I took that out of there. You shouldn't be hearing anything right now.
Okay. All right. This is live radio, so we're going to get this together. I want you to, about how far are we? We're a couple of minutes or?
Love you, baby.
Love you too.
We're, okay, you can hear me.
Yes.
Can you hear me, B?
Yep.
We're going to get started.
You need the thing that was in here.
Did I what pretty good?
You need the thing that was in here.
No, I don't. I don't. Thank you, though. Thank you.
Y'all hold tight real quick. Okay, we're coming back.
Not yet. I'll let you know.
Okay. Can you hear me, B?
Yep.
Okay, I can't hear him though.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you a little bit.
A little bit. Okay, that's me
Now-
probably talking low.
All right, now I can hear you.
Now,
Okay.
yeah, I'm raising my voice now.
Between here, I have to get this set up before I get to the next break because we lost some time there.
Go ahead. Do whatever you got to do.
I have to do what I need to do because you guys. So I have to do what I need to do so I can get back to it. Otherwise,
Okay, whatever you got to do. Do what you got to do.
sorry about that. But
All right, so the question that I was asking you is a wounded lion by no means loses its majesty. What does that mean?
A wounded lion does not lose its majesty because the bottom line is this. In your wounds, there are some beauty. Your wounds simply say that you actually, the wounds and the scars on your life, they tell you that you have survived some things. I have some scars and some wounds on my body right now. And there's a story behind every scar, every scratch, and every wound that is on my physical body. But what it also tells you is that it didn't kill me. It didn't kill me. And so there's a beauty about the fact that that I have grown to a certain age. I have been through some things, okay? And that I still know how to smile, that I still know how to love, that I still know how to dream. Your scars are not something in the end that causes you to have a disability. Your scars can also lead you to a road of greatness as well. So for me, I look at wounded lions and I go, you have not lost your majesty. Your scars are a part of your majesty.
So the wounds are not defects, but they are actually beauty marks.
They are
And
beauty marks.
They're beauty marks.
I've been through something and I'm still here.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. So, Brian, as we begin to look at this and understanding that, I want to bring that into the
give me a second.
the imagery or the backdrop of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
When you see someone like our current leader, our commander in chief, and you look at how he leads,
Yeah.
and we talk about the ways that leaders lead.
Yeah.
How would you categorize that level of leadership? Is he a lion? Or that is wounded, or how would you categorize him as a leader?
I wouldn't describe him as a lion in regards to leading and leading well. I would describe that as, I guess for lack of a better word, Kareem, I really describe it as foolishness, okay?
Okay.
I believe that leadership flows from the head all the way down. We both know God's word says the anointing flows from the head down, but so does confusion. So does confusion. so does chaos. Okay, and so it's interesting to me that we all want to take pride when something good happens from the head down, but nobody wants to take responsibility when something bad is happening from the head down. And so when I look at that whole situation, all that what's come to mind, and comes to my mind, and the best way for me to say it is that just like unity and an anointing and greatness comes from the head down and it flows down, so does chaos, so does confusion, and that's what we got, and there's a reason for it.
You know what? I think as you were talking, one of the things that came to mind, or one of as you were saying that, I was thinking about the hierarchy in a family.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when we talk about family, we say that the man is the head, but the woman is the neck. Mm-hmm. We've heard us use all types of different analogies. But when we look at this, if there is confusion in the home,
that's right.
Then we have to look at what happens at the head. That's right. In the same way that if a family is successful, and WSG is about family radio, so it talks about issues on family. So if a family is successful, the husband or the head often wants to take responsibility for the success. But if there's a failure or something that is not correct, then we also have to in turn take responsibility.
Yeah.
What does the word responsibility mean to you? Because if we're talking about wounded lions, I want to say this. They often say that wounded individuals wound people. Mm-hmm. Broken people break people. How does a wounded lion operate, and is that necessarily the case? Because he is wounded, he is destined to wound other individuals, or how do we deal with the wounds if we are roaring as lions?
The first thing that a wounded lion needs to do is acknowledge that they've been wounded. Okay, somebody who is going to cause wounds in other people's lives is somebody who typically will not acknowledge that they have been wounded themselves. Okay, they won't acknowledge that life has happened to them and that there are pains in their own lives. And those are the people who are dangerous. Because they're not careful about self-introspection. I can be a wounded lion. I think everybody has some wounds in their life. But if I can admit that about myself, then it teaches me to have compassion for others. What we're dealing with is leadership who does not acknowledge their own issues, and therefore they have no compassion and no empathy for anyone else around them or the country or the people that they're leading.
All right. Well, I want to hold on right there because we're getting ready to come back into our live radio segment, our recorded radio segment. And I want to talk to you about the importance as empathy as a leader.
Yeah.
Even though we've been wounded and we may still be roaring, we have to understand the importance of empathy in our leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Stand by. Stand by, everybody.
You're listening to United Shades of Gray on WS.
This is Kareem Boyd, your host of United Shades of Gray. I am here with the man with the mostest, my guy, B. Pruitt, Brian Pruitt of Pruitt Motivationals and CEO of Power of Dad. Brian is the author of a soon-to-be-released book, Wounded Lions, and we've been having some conversations about that. And Brian, don't think I'm going to forget about the question that I was talking about, the necessity of empathy in a leader.
Yes.
But before we do that, there may be people that are listening to this conversation and they're saying, hey, I kind of like what I'm hearing about this wounded lions. Your loudest roar comes from your deepest wound.
That's right.
How can individuals get on a pre-order list? Because this is a great book and it's going to do very well. So how can people engage or get this book, or when is it coming out, that whole piece?
You can get on a pre-order list if you go to PruittMotivational.com, and you can make an order right from there, and we will have your name and we'll have your address and we'll get this book out to you. So that's where pre-order, PruittMotivational.com. And I assure you this, I promise you this, you're going to be blessed if you'll read it. I know I'm a little biased because I'm the author, but I'm going to tell you this. I wrote from my heart. I sought the face of God. in regards to how can we take our pain and turn it into our passion, turn it into power, use the things that we've been through to further the lives of others. And just know God is not into wasting your pain. Okay. He wants to turn it into something that will catapult you into your purpose and those around you into their purpose as well. So I just want to challenge you. Go there, get the pre-order book, and then get ready to roar. This book is for men and women. If you've been through anything, it's time to roar. Restore the roar.
Lions and lionesses. You've heard it right there. Now, Brian, I want why should someone buy your book? I want you to share with those who are listening some of the things that you're doing, some of your leadership training, some of your coaching. You speak nationally. Why would somebody want to listen? Why should they buy it from Brian Pruitt? If I don't know you, give them a reason to buy it.
Here's the thing. I relate to your pain. I am you. And I am you in regards to this. I've been through the fire too. Okay. My life's not just about Brian Pruitt. My life is about giving people hope. And I want you to not just buy a book. You're not buying a book. What you're buying is you're buying hope, meaning this. It's 160 pages where you're going to go through and you're going to find the strength to stand back up and go one more round and give one more roar because God's not finished with you yet.
Brian, there are a lot of people that will hear this conversation, and we're in a time when there is so much hurt, so much pain, so much grief, concern about where tomorrow is going to take us.
That's right.
I want you to share with them some words of wisdom that you would give them to inspire them to get up and think again. Understanding and sharing a bit, Brian, because technically those who know who you are, technically you should be a former NFL player. Your stats on the football field, those, what you have done and what you've accomplished, the yards rushing and all of those things indicate that of someone who is on the NFL level. And you were at the door of that. Disappointment came in. How did you overcome the disappointment? Just share briefly that piece of your story, because I think it's so important. Share from the point that you were preparing for this next level of fame and fortune in the NFL, and it didn't happen that way. Go ahead.
And this is Wounded Lion stuff right here. I write what I've lived. I come from 4 generations of physical abuse and a murder. A fatherless kid growing up in the city of Saginaw. I could be the 5th generation of physically abusive men in my family, but I celebrate 25 years of marriage with my wife, and I have 4 beautiful kids. And we started Power of Dad. Power of Dad was my way of roaring from a wound of growing up fatherless. I roared from my womb. The ministry I have towards men started from a wound of not having the man, my father, in my life. And then with the NFL, being at the door, I was the 2nd leading rusher in the country. I battled it out my senior year in college with the Heisman Trophy winner, and was expected to go in the 2nd round of the NFL draft to play with the Miami Dolphins. They discovered that I had some issues with my spinal cord, and literally within 24 hours, I went from being a 2nd round draft pick to not playing in the NFL at all. Ended up with the Atlanta Falcons as a free agent, but was a liability for the most part. And so even from that spot, I was a wounded lion who had to learn how to roar again. What I learned, Kareem, is this when it comes to lions, is you are either dying or you're becoming dangerous. And that is all perspective. When life hits you, you feel like you're dying. But if you want to look at it a different way, we talked about this earlier, that the thing that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. If you want to look at it a different way, you can choose to be dying, or you can be choose in your hardest moment to say, I'm not dying. I'm only becoming dangerous in this moment. And I am going to roar from the spot that I am, and I am going to roar from the wounds that have been inflicted on my life.
Okay, I want you to give us some clarity, because when you say I'm either dying or becoming dangerous, the conversation won't be lost that we are 2 African-American men whose society says that we are violent. So when you say we're becoming dangerous, I need you to clarify, my brother. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Because someone will say, hey, he's getting ready to commit a murder or a crime. We're not going there. All right. So when you say that you're either dying or becoming dangerous, what do you mean when you say dangerous? What does that mean?
Yeah. And what I mean by dangerous is this. I'm either dying and giving up on life, giving up on my dreams, or at this moment, I am becoming stronger. And I'm going to rise and stand to my feet and become very passionate about what I'm going to pursue in this life. So that's what I mean by that. You become dangerous when you refuse to give up. You become dangerous when you set your heart and your mind on a goal and you get focused and you say, you know what, if I got a post, then I must have a purpose. And if I got a post, then I must have the ability to still roar and leave an impact in this world and in this life. And so if all my listeners out there, if you can hear me and if you got a post, it's time for you to roar.
If you have a pulse, then that means you yet have a purpose. So dangerous, I'll tell you that one of the most dangerous things is a man or a woman who has understood and clearly understands their purpose. People with purpose are dangerous people.
That's right.
That's how we got to the moon. That's how that's how the NASA is able to take a rocket that weighs tons and put it into space. It's because people who understand that they have a purpose and they've become focused on that purpose. I want to read something, Brian, and I want you to share with us what it is. Give us an explanation of what it is I'm reading, because I thought this was very profound.
Thank you.
Rosa Parks' loudest roar came from her deepest wound, which was racism.
Yeah.
She lived through her wounds. She did not lick them. When confronted with the task of sitting at the back of the bus, she refused to do it. She knew that she would be put in jail. The cause was more important than the consequences of jail. She took a risk to help liberate her people and now lives in American history as a shero.
Yeah.
All right. You wrote that in this particular book, but you make a distinction between living through wounds and licking through wounds. And what you read and what you said about licking wounds at the end is so good. But what is the difference, first of all, between living through wounds and licking through wounds? And after that, I'm going to ask you, why is it dangerous to lick those wounds? But go ahead.
Yeah. The difference is this. One person rises to fight again. One person rises to live and do and accomplish something great. The other person gives up. The other person gives up. So the person who licks their wounds, that's a person who's going to go into the corner. They're going to feel sorry for themselves, okay? And by licking your wounds, you are literally infecting your own wounds, and it'll be the very thing that kills you. Not so much the fact that somebody inflicted a wound upon you, as much as it is that you have now licked your own wounds and infected your own wounds, and now you have become your own worst enemy. You can't move past what people have said to you, done to you, and now you find yourself stuck in life. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life angry with others, blaming others, when the truth is at some point in time, you got to stop licking your wounds, and you got to stop feeling sorry for yourself, and you got to stand up, and you got to find the courage to roar again.
Wow, that is so profound. When I read that in the book, I was like, this is so good. You're absolutely right. Walk by Walker out there said you cannot have self-pity. You got to adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
But Brian, so looking at where we are in America right now, and I'm loving having this conversation with you, two young, suave, debonair, young African-American men, having this conversation on the air. And in light of everything that has happened, in light of the depiction of Black men in America, the fear that comes from what I consider one of America's most fearful men, it's individuals, a powerful, well-informed, educated Black man with purpose.
Yeah.
Understanding how we are viewed. There was a movie that was titled How They See Us. And when we think of those things and we look at what we have seen over the course of this year as a cry out for racial justice, what are we saying to the minds of these young men? As you look at these young men and you see the pain, we've been there together. You and I have traveled across the country speaking to the minds of young men. When you see their pain and they tell you the man or they don't treat me right, what is it that you say to them? Because that is a wound that could really change the trajectory of their life. What do you say to those young Black men who are impacted in a negative way by their interactions with police officers or by law enforcement of some other form? What do you say to them about those wounds that they could carry and how they overcome those wounds?
The first thing I do, Kareem, is I apologize to them because they deserve an apology. They didn't choose to be born Black, nor are they ashamed to be born Black. Neither are we, correct? We take pride. We take pride in who we are. I take pride in the color of my skin, just like anybody else takes pride in the color of their skin, okay? I don't look down on anybody because of the color of their skin, but I take pride in who I am, and I take pride in the color of my skin. So the first thing I do is I apologize to them for probably, sadly to say, what has already happened to them. And if it hasn't already happened to them, live long enough and it'll probably happen to you, okay? And so I apologize to them because I need to speak to that wound. I need them to understand that I know, that I understand, that I have gone through some things too because of the color of my skin, okay? Second thing I want them to know and I want them to understand is not everybody you meet who does not look like you will have a problem with your skin. So don't show up with the mindset that you already know somebody got an issue with you, because that may or may not be true. Some of the best people in your life may not look like you. And so you need to keep your heart and your mind open. But I want you to understand, and I want to challenge those young men to know this one thing. And I tell my own kids this: nobody determines your destiny but God. And nobody can stop you but God. And I want them to know that, okay? We have a long history as a people of people who have done incredible things for them, from most recent Barack Obama and Kamala Harris. And, you know, we have a long history of people who have done great things. Nobody can hold us back. We have proven that, okay? That we just keep coming and we just keep roaring. And so I want to give our young men hope to continue to dream, and dream not only small dreams, but dream big, okay? To dream big, that life is worth dreaming big. Will they face some people who will try to stop them because of the color of their skin? Yes, they will, okay? But will they meet some people along the way who will join them and walk the streets with them and join them and walk the journey of life with them who don't look like them? Yes, they will.
Brian, I want to shift the conversation just slightly. When you were talking, I'm reminded, because I know you so well, I'm reminded about some of our conversation. Are you familiar with Candace Owens, the Candace Owens, the political pundit, the Republican? Okay, I got to bring her up in this moment because when I think of individuals like you, I just want to throw this out there. I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah.
One of the things, and this is probably the only point in her conversation, there may be another one, but that I agree with Candace Owens. Candace Owens said that the biggest plague in the Black community is not the white man, but it's fatherlessness. What would you say to that statement that she often makes about that the biggest problem in African American communities is the fact that the fathers are no longer in that household?
Okay. What I would say about that is I would say it's two sides to that coin. Okay. You can put the fathers back in those situations. It does not change the mindset of people in regards to the color of my skin. It does not. It would never change that. Okay. So on that regards, I don't agree with her. That it would not change the mindset of people
perception
who don't like me just because, right?
Absolutely.
On the other side, we have a responsibility. I've worked with fathers and fatherless kids for years. And the truth is we got to do better. The truth is we got to do better. But by no means would I ever want anybody to believe that there are not some great fathers in the African American community who are doing a phenomenal job. Do we have gaps, and do we have large gaps? Yes, we do. Okay. The numbers are outstanding. I can't deny those things. Okay. But what I can say too is there are some wonderful fathers in the African American community as well who are doing an incredible job, and not only an incredible job with their own children, they have taken fatherless kids underneath their wings to try to make right the things that have gone wrong. And so I take my hats off. I take my hat off to those men because you are what's right in our communities and you are helping us to win this thing. And I'm just crazy enough to believe, Kareem, that we're going to turn this thing around because there's a generation of us who have grown up without fathers, who are committed and who refuse to see another generation of us come up. People like you, man, you've taken so many young people under your wings, college students under your wing. For many of these young men, the only father they know is you, you know? And so it's interesting. Again, we are a generation of wounded lions. We grew up without fathers, a lot of us, but we are now roaring in that area of our lives. And we are making sure that the lion cubs that come up underneath us, that they have a lion in the pride, that they see somebody that they can follow and say, this is how you hunt, this is how you lead, and this is how you live.
I can attest to that, Brian, because in the military, I've been tapped for leadership since the day I walked into boot camp. Yeah. And all the men and women, particularly a lot of men who didn't have fathers in their lives. I too grew up without a father. I'm a foster child and grew up in 4 foster homes. I understand completely and echo completely what you're doing and what you're saying because it's all true. A lot of us Black men in particular who are raised both white and Hispanic and Black young men in the Navy, in the military are father figures. And I've been the same way with my son. Because I extol so much love to my son, he is who he is today. Successfully graduated from college, working for a medical company, equipment company there, and doing quite well. You know, I'm so very proud of him. So yeah, I could, you know, just to speak locally on the whole issue there for you.
You know, and then I think that's a great point. One of our listeners, Walker, says adversity causes some to break and others to break records. That was powerful.
Ooh, I like that. I like
right.
that.
A lot of fathers can be bad. It can be a bad example. He uses the bad example to be a better father. All right. So as we and I want to bring it back to that because I want the close of this to be about what the essence of your purpose is, Brian. And if you were to define your purpose, and we've talked about the illness that plagues communities across America. And for a long time, it had been Black families that were the families that only were fatherlessness. What are you seeing as we begin to talk about the absence of fatherlessness? Because if that's a plague for Black America, and we now see that across you know, racial lines and social economic lines, then it now becomes an American problem, which it has always been from the beginning. When you begin to look at that, what do you say to the single mother that's out there that is struggling with raising a young boy and trying to help him to make the tremendous strides that are necessary to become a man? What would you share with that mother in terms of what she needs to do?
First of all, I'm so glad that you said what you said. Fatherlessness is not an African-American male issue. Fatherlessness is a man issue, a male issue. It is an issue across races and across the races. I do what I do because we have an issue, period. Okay. They come white, Black, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, and we have an issue. There are over 24 million fatherless kids in America. There's over 500,000 in the state of Michigan. We got work to do. They come in different size, shapes, and colors. And to the single parent mom, I want to say to you, I apologize because we dropped the ball. We left you with the work. We left you to carry the baggage. We left you to carry the weight. And we have left you to try to carry weight that is much too heavy for you many times. We have left you trying to teach our sons what it is to be men. And it's not that you've done a bad job at that. You did the best job you could do at it. But there at some point, we were supposed to be there to lead our son through the doorway that we knew was the doorway to manhood. So to that single parent mom, I say, I'm so sorry because I saw the weight on my own mother trying to figure this thing out, even with me as an angry young man, angry with the world, angry with my father. And so to the single parent mother, I would say this to you. The best thing my mother ever did for me, Kareem, is she found an adult male that she could trust me with. And that adult male for me happened to be my elementary school coach, Lawrence McKinley. Other men have come into my life since then, Brian Molitor, James Glenn, other people have come into my life who have helped me on my journey. But that's what fatherless young men need. They need you to find somebody that they can trust them with. and help them continue their journey to manhood, who can speak into their life. So a big applause to single parent moms, a big applause to the fathers who's knocking it out the park, and a big applause to those men who are going to have a big enough heart to make a little bit of room at their dinner table for somebody who may not be their biological child.
Brian, such a powerful statement. And I want to thank you for being the man that you are.
Thank you.
Not only the man that you are, but the father and the husband that you have shown. It's one thing, to see someone be a great person. We've heard some, men being public success and private failure.
Yeah.
But I've been in the doors of your home and I've seen, we've had conversations, and I want you to explain why this is so important. You've done this before.
Yeah.
A couple of times, when we were living in the same, you moved on up to the east side now. But when you were living with us paupers,
right.
I would see you in the community, and we would be walking. I remember one time we met up near my mailbox.
Yeah.
And we were having a conversation, and one of your daughters spoke to you.
Yeah.
And you said, "Hold on, Kareem," and you turned to your daughter.
Yep.
And you took her question and you answered her question. And then you turned back and said, "I'm sorry," and began to engage with me.
Yeah.
Why is that so? Why was that moment so important? And what were you teaching your daughter? Where you stopped the conversation with the adult? Because oftentimes we hear children should not interrupt adults' conversation.
Yeah.
But you stopped and you paused and you paid attention to your child. Why is that important? And why did you do that?
Yeah. I did that because I try to be very intentional about adding value to my children. I want them to know that I know their voice, and that when they speak to me, the world has to stop. Time out for the world. And I can turn and I can listen to my child for just a moment. Because the truth is in the form of my child is my legacy. It's going to outlive me. I need to listen to her. I need to listen to my daughters. I have 3 daughters and a son. And so it only takes a minute to add value to something that's going to outlive you, or add value to somebody who's going to outlive you. And so I find joy in being able to call a time out for just a second, just to add a little bit more value to my children. Because
our children deserve the best of us instead of giving them what's left to us. Brian, I'm so thankful for you.
I like that. I like
today.
that.
You can use that, okay?
I can use that. I'm gonna tweet that. I'm gonna tweet that and put my name under it.
Those of us who are here on today, I want to thank you for tuning in. We have Brian Pruitt with us on today. The title of his book is Wounded Lions. Yes. Your loudest roar comes from your deepest wound. Once again, Brian Pruitt, what is that website and how can people pre-register for that book?
PruittMotivational.com. Go there now and we'll start getting everything together for you.
And we are going to have Brian Pruitt back on the other side of this situation when that book gets out there. I want to bring you in, and we're going to have a reading opportunity. Awesome. So we can get a test of men, a test group of men and women. Let them read the book and see how this book begins to impact them and how we're able to open the eyes. Because one of the things that we believe that a real leader is someone who inspires someone to do more, be more, and to achieve more. And you, sir, are a leader. Thank you for your time today, Brian. We certainly thank you all for tuning in. More of United Shades of Gray. Take care. God bless you. Grace and peace.